Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio in our health and spirituality program. We've been doing this for more than 10 years. This year, we're going to be turning 11 years of this program, and it's a joy for us to be together, renewing our concepts, receiving new instruction, and opening ourselves to new beginnings. And today, the topic is the one that we elect as the best self-healing. We all know we're here on earth for a journey on regeneration. It's this force within to renew ourselves in ways unimagined. There's so many things we don't know, right? We're inviting you to join us today because we know in Spiritism, since Kardec's time in the 19th century, to date with many other books and literature, that healing is the true harmony with God, with our deep conscious, and it is on us to find a pathway. It's a learning experience. But today we are honored to have here with us someone who has experienced himself the very journey of self-healing, not only of the physical body, much more than that. It's RJ Spina in his book, Supercharged Self-Healing. RJ Spina is a metaphysical teacher and healer who overcame chest down paralysis, diabetes, pancreatitis, Hashimoto's disease, and several other severe illnesses. He offers healing, counseling, meditation, and self-realization instructions through the world. He is currently living in San Diego, California, and you can get to know of him very easily. If you Google RJ Spina, you're going to find him everywhere and elsewhere. But his main website is www.ascendthefrequencies.com. You can find his book, Self-Healing, easily at Amazon and other locations as well. And his subtitle is A Revolutionary Guide to Assess High-Frequency States of Consciousness that Rejuvenate and Repair. Don't we need it? Right, Rihanna? You're in South Africa, you work with it, and I'm happy that you're here with us as well. Slavic, thank you for joining us. Carol, thank you for joining us as well. Come, friends, come join us with your questions to RJ Spina, to us, to Kardec Radio, your comments. Let's make this session very interactive because we have much to learn. And I'd like to introduce you to the very RJ Spina. Thank you so much for being here with us. How have you been?
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, and I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm so happy you are in San Diego because such a beautiful city. So, right?
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and it's hard to complain when pretty much every day is 70 degrees and sunny. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's a dream. I know. Yes. So this book has so much to teach us. I have selected several parts of the book, but I'd like for the public at Kardec Radio to know more of you, of your journey. What would you like to share on your very journey on self-healing?
Sure. Okay. Maybe a little context is helpful.
Sure.
When I was a little kid, I would leave my body without even knowing what I was doing. Actually, it would just sort of happen naturally when I was in a very relaxed state, like just prior to going to sleep, or if I just sat down on a chair and I was very relaxed, my consciousness or soul or spirit, however you want to say that, would actually leave my body, and I would be able to look back at my body, and I would either be sitting there or lying there. And so at a very young age, I knew tangibly that I was spirit, that I was consciousness, that I was an energy, and I was not the body at all. also, as a little kid, I used to say to my parents and to my friends that if I ever get sick, I'll just heal myself,
Mm.
which is, sort of a ridiculous thing to say. But for some reason, I knew that was within me. And maybe I knew this was something that I was going to have to tap into this life. And especially considering my last name is Spina, which is where we get spine from. And I became paralyzed. I don't think that's a coincidence. So then if we just fast forward, essentially 45 years or so, on April 23rd of 2016, I was paralyzed from the chest down. I had severe, life-threatening sepsis. I had septic shock, and it had gotten into my spine and actually crushed an area of my spine between T7 and T8 in terms of my vertebrae. And I required life-saving emergency surgery, which is what they did was a laminectomy, which is where they just scrape off, literally off your spine, they scrape off all the infection. Now, most people know, or doctors know, that once the actual spine itself is damaged, it doesn't repair. It's not like the body itself where you get a cut and it scabs over. Once the actual spine is damaged, it's permanently damaged. And so I was told that I was permanently paralyzed from the chest down. I was diagnosed with diabetes, Hashimoto's autoimmune disease, thyroiditis, pancreatitis, hypothyroidism, and I also suffered from something called autonomic dysreflexia, which can be lethal for those that are paraplegics or quadriplegics. It's when your autonomic system, your breathing, your heart rate, your pulse, things like that go completely haywire. They're not automatically regulated, hence autonomic. And so mine would shut down. I wouldn't be able to breathe. My heart rate would go skyrocket in a matter of seconds. And a lot of paraplegics, quadriplegics end up dying from complications of that. So I was experiencing that as well. So when I woke up from the surgery, the best way I can describe it is that I had awakened into true, authentic cosmic consciousness. You can call it enlightenment or self-realization, or whatever word you want to use. But the veil had been lifted, and this remembering of the metaphysics, of the higher consciousness mechanics of self-healing had been accessed once again. And I literally knew exactly what to do, how to heal myself, even though my body was totally destroyed. And I began explaining this even to the ICU nurse. When I came out, when I awoke from the surgery, I started explaining everything. I told the doctors, I told the nurses. I knew that I would do this. I never had a moment's doubt. I was so certain of it that there's a video on the homepage of my website that literally, and it's time-stamped, and it shows me unparalyzing myself while I was in the hospital rehab. I had the nurses and the physical therapists film me overcoming paralysis, literally bringing my body back to life, because I knew no one would believe it was possible. So I made sure to film it. I have a copy of my MRI, so you can see my destroyed spine. You can see the surgeon's notes, pre-surgery and post-surgery, that both say complete paraplegia. That's also in the video. But and so that's there for authenticity, for people to be able to see this, and then they can avail themselves of the wisdom and the protocols and the techniques that are within the book, and what I call the Ascend the Frequencies healing technique. And Vanessa, we can sum it up by saying, when we have a different understanding of how things work, and we then do different protocols or exercises, we get different results. And I'm simply one example of the success of the healing technique that's captured in the book.
It's amazing because you talk about changing consciousness, as you say, like it's a new paradigm in our consciousness, and then new exercises, new way of practicing, of feeling, and different results. I'm emphasizing what you're saying because I know many people who come and say, I want to change, I want to heal, but they don't want to change anything in their lives. They want things to magically change, but they don't want to change anything, right?
Yeah, I mean that's a very profound statement. What you just said, Vanessa. That's absolutely true. And what doesn't want to change, we could say, is the identity or the version that they have of themselves, and we can really call that the ego.
Yes.
And in the book, I hopefully have brought upon humanity a clearer and more deep understanding of the ego, because it's, to me, it's the ego mind identity. So
Yeah.
it's who we think we are and how we feel about ourselves, and then that translates to all our interpersonal reactions. Now, once the ego mind identity, or the false character, human character, that overlays itself sort of on top of the soul or on top of the consciousness. Now that is not who we are. And that identity is what actually creates our own disharmony, our stress, our anxiety, our depression. It's actually the character that we create. And until we're able to see this character from a detached perspective, then what you said is so true. The ego mind identity is locked in its ways, it's locked in its beliefs, it's locked in its habits, and it won't change, because as it changes, that's a blow to its own sense of self. So it must keep all these things in place for its sense of self to stay in place. And that false self is the block to our own freedom, our own liberation, and our own self-healing.
I'm here with the book, and there's so much to explore. But as you're saying this, I had marked this very part when you talk about in part two, the ascending the frequencies healing technique. And the first question you ask is, because you titled step one, access your true essence. What is the real you? I think this is a fundamental question. It's so interesting you're asking this because, for example, for those who study Kardec's books, in the Spirit's book, there is this question: how can we progress steadily and avoid stumbling in the old mistakes? And they say self-knowledge. And you go straight there, and then you talk about the ego, where we're entrapped. And I love shortcuts to dissolve the ego mind identity. And you say here, ask yourself, who am I? Fingers to chest. Imagine your pair of eyes floating in the space. Say, I don't know. I don't want to spoil the profundity of the exercise in the book, but just tease all of us to go into that direction. But somewhat you need will and courage. And you talk about the power of will in page 52. And that's one of the pages that I marked. I'd like for you to tell us more about this power, the willpower we have in us that probably many people don't know.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Fantastic. Yes. So we could even say, Vanessa, we could say that you know what? Let me back up one second.
Sure.
Let me give some context so it makes a little more sense. Okay. Or it'll be more tangible for people.
Mhm.
All right. For eons and eons and eons of time, we've used the word soul or spirit. Okay. And everyone now knows what that word is. So when I say soul or spirit, we're talking about what we really are, and we're not the physical body. Okay. Most people get that. And if they don't get that yet, then that's where they need to start, to understand that they are actually spirit, that there's no form to what we are. We're energy. And a human being is a suit, a physical vehicle. And that's all it is. And we slide into it and we slide out of it. We're not the body. That's why it stays here. Okay. Now, in terms of the will, in terms of energy, Vanessa, what I discovered is that the soul, or the spirit, whatever word you want to use, is actually two different things. Okay. And this is super important in being able to access and harness your will properly, is to know the difference between these two things. Okay. So as I said previously, we just called ourselves a soul or a spirit. Okay. That has two components. My understanding, my direct understanding, is that it has two components. Now, what we really are is what I call sentience. You can think of it as a divine intelligence.
Mhm.
Okay, this sentience or divine intelligence is really our level of love and wisdom, and our talents and abilities would simply be subsets of that love and wisdom. Now, that is actually what we really are. We are the sentience. We are the divine intelligence, which is a direct fractal of God. That is what we actually are. Now, the second component to this is that all of us are given an amount or a complement of energy to work with.
Mhm.
Okay, you could think of that as like gas in your gas tank for your car, as an analogy. Okay, now this energy, this is what we use as being an immortal creator being, which is what we all are. This sentience, this divine intelligence is now given energy. And with that energy, that's what we use to think, to emote, and to animate our body. Okay, now we are the sentience, we are not the energy.
Mhm.
Just like the gas in the gas tank is not the car itself, it's just the energy or the gas that you need to animate, to drive the car. So once we are able to directly connect with what we are, the sentience, the self from esoteric traditions,
Mhm.
and we reside as that, now all of a sudden we're going to realize that we have this huge amount of power, because the energy is the power.
Mm.
And once you harness your energy, that is your will. And once you're able to do that clearly, the differentiation between what you are and you're harnessing your energy, this is when we become incredibly powerful, and we can do things like self-heal or unparalyze yourself.
And you say strengthening of the will comes from never breaking your intention.
Yeah, this is massive. Okay.
Mm.
So every little promise that we make to ourselves, and maybe we think a lot of these are very inconsequential, like just as a random example, oh, I'm gonna go clean the garage out today, something like that. I'm gonna clean the closet or whatever.
Okay.
Right? Okay, so we make a promise to ourselves, or I'm gonna lose 5 pounds this week,
Yeah.
some kind of promise. I don't care what it is, just a promise. Okay. And then you don't do it.
Yeah.
You don't follow through. You capitulate. You give up.
Yes.
You don't even try. Okay. These are little tiny defeats to your will, to your intention, to something that you said you were going to do to yourself, and then you just don't bother. Okay. Over time, when we keep doing this, when we keep accruing and accumulating these tiny defeats to our will, eventually, when there's something large and monumental in our life that we have to face that's a challenge, we will already be defeated, because we are so used to capitulating that we don't know how to follow through on our intention. So this is incredibly important for everyone to understand. So the promises that you make to yourself and the promises that you make to other people, keep them. Keep them, because you are strengthening your will, and it is your will, your energy, that you use to do everything. So it is most important that we learn how to command our energy and strengthen our will by following through on our intentions.
Wow. This is so fascinating. We've been studying about the power of will, but this is so practical, the way you're bringing it to us. Because I see many people, for example, who go through drug addictions, who go through self-destructive habits. And when they come ask for help, they want a big change, but they don't know where to begin. And you would say, begin with the little things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's the saying that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one
What
step?
happened?
Something like that, right?
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's when we let the mind leave the present moment and go to some projected future, and then this task becomes too large for us.
Mhm.
And so then we immediately defeat ourselves before we even took the first step, right? So the key is to stay in the present moment. Set your intention to whatever your intention is for whatever it is. That doesn't even matter. It really doesn't. So you set your intention. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to make this happen, or I'm going to unparalyze myself, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
You set your intention, and then you simply do what is needed from moment to moment to moment and you stay within the moment. And then eventually you have taken that first step, and then you've taken that second step, and the third and the fourth. And then before you know it, you are well on your way to accomplishing what it is that you set out to do. But the key is to set your intention and then leave it alone, almost like setting your GPS in your car to go to some, destination. You put the address in, you hit go. You don't wonder if you're going to get there. You know you're going to get there. All you have to do, turn left here, turn right here, merge onto the freeway. You just follow what you need to do from moment to moment to moment. And then lo and behold, oh, here we are. We're at the store. Everything works this way. Everything. So the key is to set your intention, don't break it, and then follow what you need to do from moment to moment to moment. And it is inevitable that you will manifest what it is that you set out to do. If you follow the directions to the store, it's inevitable you're going to get there. Now, you can drive slow if you want. That's fine. You can drive fast if you want. You can pull over on the side of the road. I don't advise it. You're not getting any closer. But if you follow the directions, you get there. And this is actually how energy and intention works. And it is our energy and our will is what allows us to create the life that we want for ourselves. And that may very well include self-healing.
You have published this book, and it comes to us here at Cardiac Radio at a time when we're still in this 2-year pandemic. And many people, it's not only about the coronavirus per se, but many things that came as a consequence of it. Not only physical illnesses, but emotional as well, mental, spiritual. Do you think that this practice can help us as well?
Oh, absolutely. The truth is the truth. And so what's captured in that book are authentic metaphysical truths. So they apply to everything. They apply to how to lead a more fulfilling life. They apply to how to get things done in your life. They apply to how to be more calm, how to be more centered, how to be more present, how to be more powerful, how to be more creative. And now I wrote the book with the direction for people that need to heal, because this entire planet actually needs to heal. But the teachings and the understandings and the protocols within the book are applicable to literally every single aspect in every single moment of your life.
You say in step 6, illness is the tangible experience of disharmony, misprogrammed energy, in parentheses. By accessing the higher frequencies where the building blocks of our form and function exist, we learn to apply step 6 to literally turn off, and I love the title, turn off the program of illness. Why do you say program of illness?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so symptoms of an illness, a sickness, a disease, to me kind of run themselves almost like computer code. So when we have a certain illness, we get certain symptoms. It's almost like it's just a code. So when we start to understand that all of those things are not germane to what we really are, that they have been added, kind of like when you get a virus on your computer. When you first get your computer, it runs fast, it runs great, it's got a lot of bandwidth, the speed is fantastic, and so on and so forth. And then the more information that gets stored on the computer, the slower it starts to run, the less effective it becomes. And then you get a virus on your computer, and then all of a sudden your computer is not going to work very, very soon. Okay, I want us to think of the human body and the body-mind complex in a very similar way. It's not the same thing, but you can think of it in a very similar way. We start out pure, innocent. We don't have all this misprogrammed beliefs, concepts, ideologies, fears. All of these things have not been downloaded yet. And most of us can recall how easy it is, or easy it was, to be joyous, to be happy, to be present as a kid. All we wanted to do was play and have fun, right? So we hadn't downloaded or acquired all this information that slows down the processing, that degrades the actual performance of our body-mind complex. So when we start to look at that, these things that we acquire, these illnesses, diseases, sickness, from my tangible understanding, these things are actually subsets of the ego-mind identity, which is the main limitation program that we build and that we think is ourselves. What we are is immortal, free, and limitless. That's what we really are, having a temporary human experience. We then take that immortality, that freedom, that totally unconditioned mind, and completely invert it and pervert it into a gigantic accumulation of limitations. And so we have taken this universal expanded consciousness and reduced it down to this group of tiny little fish bowls that we now operate within. And so whatever conceptualized reality that we create for ourselves, our body then has the tangible experience of that. So that's the mind-body connection in one sentence. Most of us now know that if we stress ourselves out and all this kind of stuff, we make ourselves sick. Most people now know this. Thank goodness. Okay. What humanity does not yet understand is that the other side of that coin is also true. If you produce and experience an expanded state of consciousness, your body also has the tangible experience of that. And so this is part of how we can self-heal. And the book lays out different ways to expand your own mind, expand your own consciousness. And as we said before, whatever conceptualized reality you create for yourself in your mind, your body then has the tangible experience. And as a leap forward, if you want to say it this way, you can. This expansion of consciousness and this breaking free of all these limitations and then being able to access your higher mind and commanding your energy. In a lot of ways, this is what was considered magic a very, very long time ago, to be able to open your mind and command your energy. So actual physical manifestations start to change. So in that sense, it's like magic, but it really isn't, because it's just metaphysics. It's the metaphysics of the higher mind, of the open consciousness. So when we expand our mind, the body starts to get better. And that's super important for everyone to understand.
Yeah, it's very liberating. Very liberating. I like it because you talk about the limitation and the limitation that is creating. So turning off this program, and then you talk about some cases here. It's so interesting for those who are watching us and haven't had the opportunity to read the book. There are cases in the book you give us about people who had Lyme disease, anxiety, insomnia, and now hyperthyroidism, and especially about anxiety, RJ. Nowadays, with the pandemic, I've encountered so many physicians and therapists who are reporting what I see. Children, teenagers, adults, elderly people getting their first experiences with panic attacks, anxiety attacks. What do you think is going on there?
Well, I mean, to me, by the way, that is the true pandemic. It's a pandemic of mental illness, without a doubt, with what is happening. That's the real issue as I see it. It's happening because all of the identifications that we formed in terms of how things are supposed to be are crumbling. We're not able to operate in the way that we did before, and we're not able to detach from it, accept it, and find a newer and better way to operate. The pressures that are being put upon people through constant sort of traumatic negative imagery is completely destructive to people's mental health. So what we have to do is to start to detach from this. Okay, and this is really the only way. And I'll give a very tangible example of that. And this will improve everyone's mental and emotional health. It's very simple. The truth is simple. It's only the mind that complicates everything. Okay, so here's the analogy. Okay, a silly analogy, but it works. Okay, so let's say we're watching a movie. Okay, and let's say it's a scary movie. All right. Now, so we're watching a scary movie. We get scared, right? Okay. Why? All right. So let me explain the metaphysics, because this is also how we're going to be able to detach and improve our mental and emotional health. Okay. So we're watching a scary movie, and because our attention, and attention is energy, When we give something attention, we're giving it energy. Okay. So if we're watching a scary movie, we're giving it attention. Now, I know we don't see this energy with our physical eyes when we're just looking at something, but the higher mind can actually see this. So when our attention is on something, that means our attention is going to it and it's connecting with what's on the screen. So now you can think of Spider-Man shooting his spider web, and he's now connected to whatever it is he shot his spider web to. So when our attention is on something, we are literally connected to it with our energy. Now, once we're connected to something with our energy, we're no longer in control of our life, which is why we get scared based upon what happens in the movie. We don't have control over ourselves anymore. What we're attached to has complete control over us. So whatever happens in the movie, we go for the ride. We have lost our sovereignty. We have lost control of ourselves. We no longer have dominion over our mind, over our emotions, over our body. So please understand the depth of this, how important this is. If you identify or attach yourself to anything, you have lost control of yourself. So the key to get back to mental health, to be able to be present, to be able to be calm, is to no longer be identifying and attached to whatever you see on the news or on the computer or whatever, or what someone says. When you detach from something, what actually happens is your energy returns to you, because you're no longer attached or identifying. You're just observing. You're just watching. You're not caught up in it. And if you're not caught up in it, your energy isn't stuck to it. You're no longer out of control. You're not affected by it. Once your energy comes back to you, you feel calm. You feel empowered. You feel in control, because you are. And now the ability to not have to battle all the anxiety, all the craziness that's going on. You no longer have to battle it because you're no longer connected to it. You're simply just observing it, and all your energy is back to you. So through this detachment or non-identification with what is going on, detachment is power, because you get your energy back. And then once you have your energy back, you'll feel like yourself. You'll be empowered. And then you can do whatever it is that you need to do in your life because you have the energy to do it.
And of course, for us, we're here, we're totally surrendered to God. So when you say you go back to it, you're the grounding with God, because we're not self-made, right? So you're saying there in that state of being, we can no longer connect with the reality that is somewhat afflicting us.
You got it. It's 100%. You actually just took it the next step, because that is the next step. When you detach from this tumultuous nature of this planet, right, and your energy comes back to you, what you're really connecting with now is yourself.
Yeah.
And as you connect with yourself, you are going to connect with what gave birth to you, the creator, God, what source, whatever word you want to use, because that is what we are. We are a tiny individualized unit of that. God is within our consciousness. It is not outside of our consciousness.
Yes.
So as you go within, what you actually experience is the depth of yourself, which is also our God, our source, our creator. And God, source, creator, as far as I know, has no limitations.
Yeah.
So when you are connected to yourself, truly connected to yourself, not a belief, not an ideology, not an expectation, when you're connected to yourself, the door, literally, what as Christ said, the kingdom of heaven lies within. It does. And this is how you do it. You come back to yourself. You detach from what goes on here.
Yes.
We're in the physical, but don't be of the physical. We're simply here temporarily. Reconnect with yourself and your own higher mind, your own higher consciousness, and the petals of your crown chakra will open, and it becomes very easy to self-heal or even become self-realized.
By the way, when you talk about chakras, there are pictures in the book. I want to show just one of them. Some of them here. You talk about it in depth. And now we have a question by Rihanna that probably goes hand in hand with the next steps that I would like to ask when you talk about vibrations. She talks about, would you say that anyone can change even the family-born illnesses, as we know that we can expand our telomeres through meditation? so to say, change you're born with programs?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's, maybe the easiest way to explain this is, we talked about that the soul is really two things. What we really are is this sentience, or this divine intelligence that's given a body of energy to think, emote, and animate the body. Okay, it is the sentience that commands our body, right? We give the directive to get up,
Yeah.
wash our hair, okay. So we give the directive. The sentience, what we really are, gives the directive. The sentience is in charge. I mean, think about how many times you've made your body think, emote, or do something, right? Your whole life, right? Okay. That is what is in charge, and that can override anything that's going on with the body itself. The sentience is in control.
Mm-hmm.
Again, think about your life. You have told your body what to do your entire life. This is no different.
Mm-hmm.
This is no different. You just have to be so connected to yourself, and you have to feel it tangibly. And the book outlines the steps in order to do this. But make no mistake, it's the sentience that unlocks and tells the RNA what to do. The RNA then gives its marching orders to the DNA and the cells and the proteins. Sentience is the commander. It always is, and it always has been. It's sentience that dictates everything. It's sentience that unlocks all these different things in terms of our RNA and DNA. I put my spine back together through exactly what I'm talking about. So sentience commands everything, and it doesn't matter. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I don't take any medication. That's supposed to be impossible as well. It's not. None of that stuff is impossible when you start to work with what is unlimited and what is divine. You, the real you, is unlimited and divine. The body-mind complex is just a suit that we get to enjoy, but we are the commander of the body-mind complex. And when you take that control back, you can make the body do anything, including self-heal.
So then in this the steps that you give us, you talk about very tangible things, because I'm imagining that many people here are thinking, man, my life is so busy. Where do I find the means and the ways? And you're talking about tangible things. For example, you talk about sounds, vibrations, exercises that people can do to really awaken this self-healing ability, right?
Yeah, it's so one way I like to say it, that's exactly right, Vanessa. One way I like to say it is that the truth doesn't require your participation. All right, it just is. Okay, lies require your participation. Okay, so another way of saying it, a dog doesn't have to try to be a dog. It's a dog. Okay, you don't have to try to be the real you. You are the real you. You're simply pretending to be this character that you've created, and it's destroying us. It's making us stressed. It's making us sick. It's making us unhappy. It's making us anxious because we're trying to be something that we're not.
Wow.
So the easiest thing to do. So here's part of what I feel is super important in this book, frankly, among many things. But I can't tell you how many people I've worked with in this incarnation as RJ is that everyone comes to me, RJ, I can't meditate. I've tried and tried and tried. I can't meditate. It's just too difficult, and I don't have the time. My life's too busy. I'm too stressed out, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The self, what we really are, is meditation. Because the self, the sentience, is what exists prior to thought, prior to emotion, prior to the body. So by simply being what we are, the self, the sentience, that is meditation. Now, here's a super fast way to, and there's several of them in the book, but here's another super fast way to instantly stop your mind, meditate, and to instantly calm your emotions. All you have to do is this. Simply pretend that you just arrived here. No past, no future. You cannot think. Okay, you literally cannot think. Now, there's instantaneous meditation, no training required. You don't have to go in your room, turn on your sound bowls and all this kind of stuff, which is fine. I'm saying, but now you can literally do it in 1 second. Okay, and that's why I say the truth doesn't require your participation. So you're just tuning into what you are, and the book is filled with all these 1 second kind of meditations. Now, what you experienced, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So when you pretend that you just arrived here, no past, no future, what is actually occurring, metaphysically speaking, which the eyes don't see, but the third eye can see, the energy that is normally in our head, thinking, da, 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 da. Okay, so when you do that little thing that I just said, the energy literally automatically drops right out of your head, because thinking has to do with the past and the future. That's what thinking is, by the way. Thinking is the back and forth of past, future, past, future, past. So if you literally pretend that you just arrived here, no past, no future, the energy drops out of your head, because that's what thinking is the back and forth. Now, the other thing that happens is that some people experience almost a surge of happiness or joy. You can almost feel your frequency, your vibration raising the moment you do that. That's because you're experiencing the real you. The real you is joy. It's this supreme vibration. It's a fractal of God. It's this supreme love, joy, happiness. So that's why I've seen people actually laugh when they do this. It just comes out. This happiness, this joy, that's you. That's you. That's your natural state. Not thinking and feeling joyous. That's who and what we all really are. And so that also is the starting point, or the starting line, so to speak, of self-healing. Mm-hmm. That vibration, that joy, that happiness is healing. It's literally healing. Literally. That is a high vibration. That is a high frequency. And disharmony, which is a low frequency, cannot exist within a high frequency environment. So as you raise your frequency and you raise your vibration, the low frequency disharmony and sickness can do nothing but start to repair and heal itself, because it has to. It's like if you turn on the hot tub, whatever you put in the hot tub is going to get hot. It just is, right? Because so when you raise your frequency, which is what this whole book is about, when you raise your frequency and you raise your vibration, disharmony, sickness, disease cannot exist within that environment. And that's why I say that is the starting point for self-healing. It's also the starting point for self-realization as well.
It's beautiful. It reminds me, when you're saying there's such a powerful exercise for mindfulness, it reminds me of an author, Emmanuel, who wrote this book through the medium Chico Xavier in Brazil. Thought is life. Thought and life. And there's a chapter he says, if you want to be free of the shackles of the past, you need to seek the good, feel the good, visualize the good, and mold the good with all the resources you have within. When you did exactly that to bring us to the present, you can only seek the good if you're in the present, because the past is gone and the future doesn't exist. So you have to be mindful to do all of it, as you're saying. And that's what you said, like, you are putting yourself into that state of joy, higher vibrations. And it's funny to say that when I was reading a book by Dr. Martin Seligman, who works with children, and he's the father of positive psychology, he says in Optimistic Children that only in that state of optimism our children will be raised with resilience and endurance to face whatever they need in life. You agree with that, right? Because that's what
100%, and we're probably saying the same thing. I just got my way of saying it, and he has his. It's almost the same thing. Let's say it this way: if we're not connected to something deeper and more important within ourselves, we will never be able to withstand the pressures of society. Yes. Okay. And that deeper, more important thing is the self, the sentience, And that automatically engenders the connection to source, God, creator. And that is where all joy, all resiliency, power, the will, optimism, everything that is quote unquote good. Absolutely. But what's interesting is the key is that you have to quiet the mind. You cannot do it through the mind. The mind is the block. The mind is the block. Okay. And let's do something real quick, which I also think will be very helpful for people. Right now, you and I are having a wonderful conversation, and some of the things that we're talking about are fairly high level stuff, not typical, mundane kind of, hey, you're going to the store later, whatever. So we're talking about things on a fairly high level. Now, here's what's super interesting about that is that we understand everything that we're saying to each other without thinking. Sit with that for 1 second. Real understanding and real communion only occurs when you don't think. That will give everyone a different perspective on what thinking actually is. It's the block. It's what separates us. And it doesn't even exist. We create it. We create the thoughts and the ruminations and the about whatever. It's not even really there. Really see this. It's not even really there. We have to create it. The block that we have to our own higher mind and God, and the block between each and every one of us doesn't even really exist. We have to create it through thinking. And it is that thinking is what ends up causing our own disharmony, our own fragmentation within ourselves, the compartmentalization within ourselves, the separation within ourselves. And once we do that to ourselves, of course, we will do that to one another.
It's interesting you're saying that about how we're creating it, because yesterday I was talking to a group of friends, reminding us of a passage from a book that we've read and translated that reports to Jesus' time, when he was talking to Nicodemus, who was one of the doctor of the laws, and came to talk to Jesus, and he said he still didn't get where this kingdom of heaven is, of God is, because he studied, and it's not there. So he recognized in Jesus the Master, the Messiah, and Jesus says, and I never forget about this. I was so impacted by this sentence when I first read many years ago. Nicodemus, it's not enough to know. You forgot to feel it. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, you got Vanessa, 100%. Yeah. It is not enough to intellectualize life.
Yes.
So we are not our thoughts. So almost what good is mentally understanding something if we're not our thoughts, right? We must tangibly feel it, experiential. It must be tangible. Just what Master Christ said, that's exactly right. It has to be not just a mental understanding. More importantly, it has to land by opening up the ears of your heart. Let it land right here. Then it becomes one with your consciousness. Then it is no longer separate, kept in the mental realm, in your mental container, which actually never touches the real you, which is why intellectualism ultimately is useless. It's useless.
Yeah.
It's a nice tool to have the intellect, don't get me wrong.
But it's deceiving.
Very. It separates, it compartmentalizes, it fragments, it cuts everything, it slices and dices. And all it does is temporarily slice and dice what is eternally whole. So how good a tool is that really? If it keeps cutting everything apart that is actually already all one thing and all connected, right? So when we let teachings of masters, when we let those teachings land upon the ears of the heart, that wisdom and that love has now become part of us. It has become part of our consciousness. You are now connected to it, and it is you, and you are it. And that's the key. And that's why that sentence impacted you so much, Vanessa, because you let it land. You let it land properly, which is why you were so affected and why you've never forgotten it. It's become part of you. And that is the key.
Yeah. So good to feel it, right? And I have a sentence here that you brought as a mantra. I want to say it to the public to see that this book, there are so many beautiful ones. But this one, I am the conqueror of my mind and body. It changes the whole direction of our relationship with ourselves, because we have a relationship with ourselves. But then we always tend to feel like we're victims of whatever. And now we're taking charge when you say that. And that changes, as you say in the book, the paradigm of our lives, right?
Yeah, it is. It's a total, the book is a total paradigm shift. It literally changes everything. It puts it, it rights the ship, if you will.
Yes.
It puts the sentience, the self, the soul, the consciousness, whatever word you want to use, it puts it back in charge of the incarnation and not the disharmonious ego mind identity. And once what we really are, the self, the soul, the consciousness, once that is back in charge, that essence is God. It's not lacking anything. It's not missing anything. And when we start to attune our conscious mind to that self, that source point within us, the body automatically heals itself. Automatically. That's the key to understand this, is that I am the conqueror of my mind and body. That I am, in the beginning of that mantra, that's divinity in action. That is God speaking. I am, as the immortal creator. So when we say I am the conqueror of my mind and body, we have empowered ourselves beyond any intellectual endeavor. And that's the key to a better quality of life. That's the key to self-healing, and it's also the key to self-realization.
Yeah, I agree. I remember last year when we had the experience of the coronavirus in our family, and when we were diagnosed with it. I remember the first thought that occurred to me was like, hold on. This does not own me. It does not. God is overseeing everything and is allowing me to experience this. It does not take charge of my life. On the contrary, I am in charge. And I remember with a group of friends, we prayed 3 times a day together, did visualizations, ate even without the appetite, but eating healthy, hydrating, and resting. And thank God everything was overcome. This was before the vaccination. And through that experience, though minimal compared to all the cases that you've experienced, that you've said in the book as well, I confirm that what you're saying about ourselves, feeling that we are presiding over ourselves under the care of God, changes everything, right? And I want to add something. Our friend Nora, who is in Texas, she's saying, this is a great talk. Andrea Lewis in Missionaries of the Light shares, medical science will reach sublime heights that they discovers within the transient body, the shadow of the eternal soul. Each physical cell is the instrument of a certain mental vibration. We are all heirs of our Father, who creates, preserves, perfects, transforms, or destroys, and each day, with our potential, as generators of latent energies, we are creating, renewing, improving, or destroying something. Wow. Thank you for your time and your help for bringing this up. I think this goes hand in hand to seeing the universality of the teachings. And there's so much what I love, especially about the book, not only the cases, but how practical it is. The exercises like you've done here live with ourselves, RJ. I would like to wrap up this conversation, hoping first and foremost, my intention that we can bring you back in the near future because we want more and need more. But to kindly ask you to wrap up with your final comment for all those, especially those who are here feeling greater afflictions, some form of hopelessness, and in true need of stepping into their self-healing. Please.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. The first thing I want to say is that what you really are is immortal, perfect, and whole. That's what we all are at our essence. There is no such thing as imperfection. There is no such thing as lack. Okay? So you needn't worry about what is so-called missing in your life. Even if good health is missing right now, it's just temporary. What you are at your core is immortal and perfect. And just sit with that for a moment because it's the truth. The second thing is give yourself permission to heal. Give yourself permission to heal because your doctor might not give it to you, or your husband or your wife or your neighbor or whoever. Give yourself permission to heal. Take back control. I am the conqueror of my mind and body, and know whatever is going on with the mind body, it is not you. Just like the bad weather, there's clouds in front of the sun. Sometimes we can't even see the sun at all. And what do clouds produce? Rain, sleet, snow, bad weather, tornadoes, hurricanes, you name it, right? None of those things touch the sun. No matter how bad the weather is, the sun is untouched. It is unsullied. And you are the sun. No matter what is going on with your mind-body complex, you are untouched. You are unsullied. And you remain perfect and eternal. So give yourself permission to heal. That is the starting point. And no matter what is going on, you are always, always the sun. And you are always perfect. And you are always within God's hands.
What a blessing. We feel like this is enveloping us in so much certainty of the good of God. And we want to thank you so much for being here with us for your book, Supercharged Self-Healing. We want to recommend to everybody because the recommendations here is like a guide to access high frequency state of consciousness. And that's what we need right now on the earth. Thank you so much, RJ, for being here with us at Kardec Radio. We hope to bring you back, to have you back here in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much.
And as Carol was saying, beautiful, empowering reality. Thank you for voicing it. And she says it all. Thank you. We want to say thank you, friends, for being here with us. Share the news. Share this interview with everyone you know, because people need it. Oftentimes we suffer because we don't know. And here we have the book, the very author, bringing to us what we need. Give it to the doctors. Yes, that's what Rihanna is saying. Yes, from South Africa to the US and the world. Let's give the book to all doctors. That's the certainty. Yes. Thank you, RJ. Thank you, friends. We hope to see you next week. We'll be back here talking about health and spirituality with more friends joining us in this memorable journey in this life. We see you next time.